Hey guys, this is TV Siblings Podcast for Mr. Robot, going over episode 5 of season 4, and the title is
Method Not Allowed.
Method Not Allowed. We're getting all these titles so far where it's some kind of forbidden warning.
You're gonna introduce us? You're not gonna let us introduce ourselves? You just skipped over that.
Sorry, this is Sid.
This is Swetha.
And this is Harini. Jesus.
Sorry, I got so excited about this episode. I totally skipped the intro.
It's all right.
But yeah. What did you guys think about this episode?
It was a great episode. Very Mr. Robot-like to figure out how to make the most creative episode possible. And I love the way that Sam Esmail plays with different styles, and it was an awesome episode. Loved it.
Yeah, I may have a controversial opinion. I did like the episode, but I felt like it wasn't as captivating as everyone has been talking about it as. Mainly because that running scene of Elliot running away was so long and just so drawn out. I don't know. I just felt like there was a lot of time spent on certain things. Even the printing of the 3D thumb, they spent a good 2 minutes of just watching it print and things like that. And obviously that was to build up the tension and things are taking time and making it as realistic as possible. But I felt for me a little bit, it was kind of all right, let's speed it up type of thing.
I think those are all fair criticisms. I liked the episode.
I did like the episode. I will say I liked it.
Yeah. I thought it felt like a caper, right? A heist, very Ocean's 11. And like Swetha was saying, Sam Esmail, he loves to stretch his creative muscles and kind of push the boundaries of the television medium. And he did that in this episode of basically saying, let's not have any dialogue, but not in a way where it felt forced. I think they towed the line a few times where it felt like there should have been some talking, but it didn't cross that line. They went up to it, but didn't cross it. And so everything felt natural as far as why there was no dialogue.
Yeah, just to add on to that point, the scene where they roll up to Virtual Realty and Darlene clearly has to have a conversation with the security guard, and she is talking to him. But the scene's shown from Elliot's perspective. He can't hear anything.
Yeah.
So it's still silent.
It's still silent.
That was a really cool scene. Yeah.
Just some great framing, great cinematography. Just, really, really well done. Oh, and the music was perfect. It was just so pulsating and on the edge of your seat. It was amazing. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Clearly,
we should do the
really
intro again. This is the Sid show.
Yeah, I definitely realized that there was not a lot of dialogue, but I was focusing a lot on Elliot and Darlene. Obviously, there's not going to be a lot of dialogue, but they did a really great job of blending that into every other aspect and every other storyline that they visited in this episode. So I thought that was very seamless and very creative and well done. So just to go by storylines, we'll save Elliot and Darlene's for last, but the first scene, I will start with Elliot. So we see, as it picks up from last episode, Elliot picks up Welk's phone and pockets that, which I feel like we'll see later on, or that might come in handy later. And Mr. Robot and Elliot burn the car and all the evidence with it. And subsequently, Darlene picks up Elliot and she promptly says, dude, we don't have to talk. And they just ride off into the sunset, not really the sunset, but they keep going on and they eventually make their way back to New York. So we'll pick up on that storyline later. But the next thing we see is Krista. She's at home and essentially is texting her boyfriend and looks like they have plans to travel back to her home for Christmas. And she makes a split decision. It's you know what? Fuck it. Let's just have Christmas at home, just you and me. And so that's the plan, which we can tell as an audience is probably a grave mistake on her end, as we know that Vera is trying to tail her. So we'll see how that comes up later. The next part, as we see Krista, she is shopping at the local grocery store. She's picking up items. She seems very happy, completely distracted from anything in her own world completely. But she does notice that there's this kid that's kind of keeping close eyes on her in this red puffer jacket.
I thought it was kind of strange where Krista's like grocery shopping. She's like all smiling
Yeah.
at all like the different foods. She's like touching the bread. I'm like, that scene was a little bit weird for me. I was like,
Like,
no, I don't
too
think anyone
Idealistic.
grocery shops like that. Yeah.
Right. And so she gets all her groceries. She makes her way home, and she's at her front door trying to get in. And she noticed out of the corner of her eye that same kid across the street
That was
staring
so
at her.
scary. My goodness.
Very scary.
Oh.
And she has great instinct, and she immediately knows that this is not a good sign for her. And she scrambles and is completely flustered, drops all her groceries as she's trying to furiously get it back inside her house to safety. And she's not able to. The kid is already makes his way across the street right in front of her and picks up one of the items that she dropped and hands it to her. And as she picks it up, Vera is there. And he has this great line where he just looks at her and says, "It's time we talked." And that's where the episode ends.
Yeah, and like I had mentioned, perfectly bookended
Mm-hmm.
between the start and end of dialogue with, the beginning. I think the first line that you mentioned that Darlene says was, "Dude, it's okay. We don't have to talk."
Which is great. I didn't even catch that until now.
Yeah, it was perfect. And then finally, Vera ends it by saying, "It's okay to talk now. It's time we talked,"
Mm-hmm.
which is perfect. So perfect.
So good. So good. Okay, I think I like this episode a little more.
I was thinking about why Vera's in this season at all.
Mm-hmm.
And how, like, why does it make sense to have two antagonists in this final season where White Rose is obviously the big antagonist and Vera is the minor antagonist? But in terms of the timing of things and how this is playing out, it's clearly going to happen the next episode. We see in the trailer, I'll just talk about it, that Vera is interrogating Krista and questioning her. And this is the same time that the Deus group meeting is either about to happen or going to be happening. And so I think Elliot is going to be in a situation where he has to make a choice. Where is he going to be at? And is he going to save Krista? Or is he going to let her potentially die to keep this plan moving forward?
Oh, shit.
I like that a lot.
That makes
I think
me
that's a
sad.
great crockpot theory.
I
by
like
Sweet
that.
Thing.
I feel like that might actually happen though. Like actually.
What do you guys think of the idea of no dialogue in this episode?
I loved it. I think it was a very unique episode in that way. And I didn't find that I missed having dialogue at all. It made me more in tune with what the actors or the characters are actually doing. And I was more of a participant, an active participant. Because I didn't have to worry about, looking into the dialogue. What are they saying? What does that mean? I was just able to just sit and absorb and listen, which is great. Or watch.
A couple interesting things about it. One is no Mr. Robot this episode.
Oh, you're right.
So we were talking, Sid and I were talking about why that would be, and I think we had two different theories on it. My theory was there was just a lot of action this episode and not a lot of introspection from Elliot's point of view, and so it wasn't really, like, he almost didn't have time for Mr. Robot. Like, there was just so much happening.
Right.
And I think Sid had a slightly different take on it.
I think that there might have been moments where Mr. Robot showed up, and we're going to get to this when you go over the recap of Elliot's storyline, Irony. But I think maybe Mr. Robot maybe took over for a second, or maybe spoke in Elliot's ear when he got hit by the car and got him to get back up. I could see that as a moment where Mr. Robot took over. But I also I don't think he was needed in the situation they were in. I think a lot of the times Mr. Robot shows up when he feels like he needs to interject because Elliot's doing something that he feels like is unsafe or previously in earlier seasons detrimental to their plan or would impact their plan. Or, when Elliot feels like, I need your help, and he would take over. Elliot was good to go. He was in control, had a very focused and tight plan, and Mr. Robot was letting him do his thing. He didn't need him.
I also think just stylistically, it was an important episode for Elliot and Darlene.
I agree. Yeah.
And it just would have been kind of awkward if, like, Mr. Robot was, like, randomly there for the moments that they shared.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think in the mid 2000s, Marvel Comics and DC Comics, they did this joint thing where for, I think like a month, all the comic issues they came out with, they tried this thing where there would be no dialogue with the characters.
Yeah.
And it was all visual. And it was, can you come out with a story that was exciting and interesting, that was all just images? And what was cool about it is afterwards they would release the script by the writers of how each scene would look. And it was actually even more descriptive than usually, because you have to actually write more to understand what's happening. And dialogue can actually be a little bit of a crutch sometimes. And in this instance, I think it just wasn't needed. There was so much action that so many things were happening one after another in this crazy sequence. You don't miss the dialogue at all.
Still incredibly creative for Sam Esmail to think about that, though, right? Where out of all the episodes, this was the perfect one to do it, where you don't miss it at all. And if anything, it makes the episode even more interesting.
Yeah, another episode he could have done it, but I'm glad he didn't, was the continuous tracking shot episode.
I loved the blaring alarm in that one.
Well, that's not dialogue.
No, but
true.
I think, I don't know. I like the way that episode was.
I'm just saying he could have done it for that episode and it would have worked really well. But then we would have missed the insanely awkward dialogue of Elliot randomly attending that meeting and taking a bite of their bagel and putting it down. So
Get it done! Another thing that having no dialogue for this episode shows how much the characters are texting each other. And it's definitely realistic. Everyone texts each other nowadays. No one calls each other. So much so to the point where Sid is why is this guy calling me?
Oh yeah, I hate when people call me.
He'll basically not answer and then immediately be like, hey, what's up?
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Yeah, it reminds me of that scene from Community where they're trying to help Britta break up with one of her ex-boyfriends.
We love the scene.
And Annie steals her phone, and the guy's trying to call her, and they're like, what is he doing? And Troy's like, he's born in the 80s. They still call each other.
So good.
Great point, Swetha. Everyone just texts each other so much. I think it's faster. It feels a little more informal and I don't know. And there's no waiting for someone. You just send a text. They'll respond when they can.
Yeah.
And in this instance, it was perfect. Perfect way of communicating without having dialogue.
It's it replaces a voicemail almost these days.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to move on to DDP. So the first thing we see of DDP, she's still back at her apartment or in her apartment in New York. And she looks like she's about to head out. She's got her Christmas cookies all ready to go. She's going to... Oh, that was one thing I wanted to clarify. So is the episode that we're seeing, is that Christmas Day or Christmas Eve?
So it's Christmas Day. And so at the opening scene with the Elliot scene, Elliot's scene was burning the van, which we're going to get to. I looked at the time on the phone, that it was Wellick's phone that Elliot picks up. It's 7:22 a.m. Christmas Day. The time when they start the, trying to hack trying to infiltrate Virtual Realty was 11 a.m. on the dot.
Okay.
So this is Christmas Day morning.
Got you. Okay, just want to make sure. Yeah, so it is Christmas Day, and DDP's about to head out to most likely go back to New Jersey to her mom's place. And she gets a text from our good old friend Janice, the taxidermist, who says, Merry Christmas, with that Christmas tree emoji, and essentially tells her, hey, you screw Christmas. It's not happening. We need you to get ahead on the story of the whole situation that's currently happening at Pikes Hollow, where they found the Dark Army car that was burnt, or van that was burnt with all the evidence. And I think just one body, not Wellick's body.
Yeah, that's really important, I think. They never found Wellick's body, as far as we know.
Mm-hmm. Which was weird because they found his phone.
Elliot took his phone.
Right. Elliot has his phone, but did he find that? Did he just drop that near the van? Or did he find that, like, was looking for Wellick and found his phone?
That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. Why would Wellick drop his phone?
Or give his phone to Elliot, for that matter.
He didn't give it to he didn't give the phone to him because the phone was in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
And Elliot took it.
Oh, you know what? Like, maybe when he got shot, it just, like, fell out of his hand or fell out of his pocket or something.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Yeah.
And then he was just, they obviously had that last moment where he's like, I'm going to go walk off. And then Elliot picks it up afterward.
It could also be Wellick trying to help out Elliot. Drop the phone, the only device that can potentially track him.
Mm-hmm.
He walks off. Another way of saving Elliot in a way.
Yeah.
The presence of mind, though. The presence of mind.
Presence of mind. I mean, actually, it works out really well that they didn't find Wellick's body
I
for
think
Elliot.
That's
and
Wellick's, that was Wellick's whole intention.
Oh yeah, he wanted to make sure he
So,
could protect Elliot.
yeah.
Which is, last dying move.
There's something about Janice's texts where they just get under your skin, you know? The way she just, like, tells DDP
She's
what
too
to do.
jolly.
And yeah, there's something so, I don't know, just so irritating about it. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, the best way I could describe it is she sends the most passively aggressive evil text possible.
yeah, she's so evil.
Or it's just like, hey, look this up. Thanks, hon. Bye.
Merry Xmas!
2 thumbs up.
I need you to find these troublemakers for me.
It's very different
getting
from
too ahead.
Irving.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I'm actually surprised we haven't seen Irving this season so far. I guess he really was done.
I think he's done. I think he's on vacation, right? He's got to work on his script.
I think she'll be good with me. That was
This
his
guy-
last words.
He's got to finish the script with that guy with those meaty hands.
Damn meaty hands. All right, so like I was saying, DDP gets the text from Janice, and she's like, I need you to get ahead of the story on with the FBI user clearance to kind of control the situation. They found our car, and we need to figure out what's going on. Or van, sorry. And so DDP gets there along with the local police at Pikes Hollow, and we kind of find out later that she doesn't really have the clearance to take control of the situation. But she goes back to their local police station, and I didn't really catch this on first watch, like what was going on, because I see DDP go, looks like she's going to the bathroom without her coat on. And then we see one of the local police women officers, her phone goes off from All About the Bass by Meghan Trainor. It goes off, but it's in the donut box. And that was obviously just like a ruse or diversion while DDP basically gains remote access to that police officer's desktop. And we find out later in her car, she sends that information to Janet. She's like, hey, I wasn't able to get access to what's going on, but I was able to get one of the desktops. So here it is. And Janice says, like, good job, well done, all of that. And at the same time, right before that scene ends, DDP gets an email from the FBI saying that Deegan McGuire was released. And Deegan McGuire is the guy that we see DDP interviewing very shortly before she was pulled away. And he essentially is a guy that helps people disappear. And you can see the cogs kind of whirring in her head, like, I could use this guy.
Exactly. And we talked about this, I think, in a previous podcast, that there's an excellent chance she will use this guy in some capacity. Can we just talk about real quick what you guys think she's going to do with him? I was trying to play through the scenarios in my mind. I think it's too much to get him to disappear her entire family. And then I thought, as much as it's fucked up, her best bet might be to just disappear herself. If she's gone, she can't be there to protect her family, but at least, Dark Army can't find her, and killing her family would serve no purpose to Dark Army because they have no idea where DDP is, assuming this guy's good at his job. So I think that might be her best bet in using this guy. But yeah, either way, this guy's in her back pocket as a card to use down the road.
I feel like that's probably the most obvious path that she would take, but I worry, I don't feel like it's the smartest if she decides to just disappear herself, because Dark Army could easily just kill her entire family just to bring DDP out of hiding or something like that. There's nothing that they would do to stop to take revenge or show that they're serious. I don't know in what capacity she's going to use that, but I feel like maybe disappearing her mom at least. I don't know if her dad's in the picture. It doesn't seem like he was in the frame, but it seems like she's closest to her mom, or at least that might be someone that she choose to disappear or help disappear.
Yeah, there was an older man that was like knocked out asleep.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
That might be her dad. And I think those like her nephews that are playing, and then she has 2 brothers.
Right.
It just seemed like a massive family.
Yeah.
Like, who are you going to choose to protect?
I
agree with Harney, though, that I don't think DDP is going to use it for herself. Because even if killing her whole family doesn't serve a purpose, Dark Army's like messed up like that. Like, they would want to take revenge and be like, this is what happens when you run away. Otherwise, they're never going to be able to use that threat. You know what I mean?
So the only way I could see DDP using this guy in order to protect herself from Dark Army is if it's in tandem with Elliot and Darlene's plan to take down White Rose. If that's happening, and maybe during this confusion she disappears, or they're completely destroyed as an organization, and she's like, fuck it, I'm out of here.
I have a crockpot theory. Just thought of it right now. What if DDP uses it to disappear Elliot and Darlene? Because I guess I have to justify myself. Jeez, I did not get the reaction I wanted.
It just doesn't make sense for right now, but I guess in like a week after all the drama unfolds, it's a way that they. But I don't know if they do finally.
She's not gonna let you finish.
If they do
She's
finally
pulling a
defeat
Kanye right now.
Yeah, I know.
White Rose, I'm gonna let you finish.
All right, finish your thought. What are you trying to say?
I'm just thinking, because we see like her last scene that I'll talk about, these troublemakers she's meant to round up, as we see is Elliot and Darlene, and you can see the look on her face. She just looks exasperated. She's like, oh man, like I'm never gonna get away from these guys. Like I think the next scenario is that her task is gonna have to be to kill them or bring them in or do something, and maybe she just doesn't want to do that anymore. She's like, this is the easiest way, just like rid my hands of this whole mess and not get my hands too dirty. Let's just make you disappear, because I don't want to see you. I don't want to kill you. Let's just get rid of you.
That's interesting. That could be a possibility.
You
So
need
they hate
someone's
it.
consent. You need.
I do. No, I didn't say I hate it.
You need someone's consent.
Swetha definitely hates it.
You need someone's consent to make them go into hiding, though. That's
You
the
don't
thing.
think they want to
No,
get
you
out of there?
don't. What? Why do you need someone's
It's a
consent?
medical.
To make them go into hiding? Why don't they just come back?
Her choice can be like, I give you to Dark Army, I arrest you, or you disappear, and we're good.
Well, it just talks about this in the previous episode, where it's like, don't you ever think about just disappearing and just like walking away from all of this? I feel like Darlene definitely wishes she had a way to just disappear and walk away from all this. I think Elliot feels like he has to like finish the job and thinks it's going to end in death. But this could be an alternative approach for both of them to finally just like live a life that they want away from all of this.
Yeah, it could be just like Swetha's favorite movie of all time, Shawshank Redemption. Where they get away to Guantanamo on the beach. I could see that. I could see Ellie on the beach with Darlene at the end.
And they run into Irving.
Just working on a script.
I think they just have too much work to do still. I just don't see them exiting like right now.
No. I think
it won't be right now.
not right now.
It'll be
I think it'll
later.
be later. But so just to round off that scene, since we're already talking about it, once DDP comes back home, she does end up going later, once everything's finished, to New Jersey to finish up Christmas with her family. And she gets another text from Janice that says, okay, like we got security camera footage of Elliot and Darlene round up these troublemakers. Chop, chop.
Yeah, so a key detail, it's the red light footage from the crime scene of when they burned the van, not any footage from the Yuletide mayhem, as the news called it. So I think that might be an important detail. As far as we know, Dark Army does not know that Elliot and Darlene were involved in the virtual reality infiltration. So I think that might be an important detail. One quick small thing on DDP, I thought it was like a nice little detail that they showed her just buying random Christmas cookies and putting them in one of her own bins to make it look like she baked them. It was just like a nice touch. You don't need it, but it's like a nice touch showing how apathetic Darlene is to like everything.
No, DDP.
Sorry, yeah, DDP is to like everything, but also wants to put up the front that she tried to her family.
Nice catch. Yeah, very nice touch. I did have one question. When DDP is driving out of Pike's Hollow, she stops in the middle of the road and looks out and looks at the security cameras on the traffic lights. I didn't really understand what that was about.
That's exactly what I was referring to. So that's what the whole police station thing was. She put some kind of intercepting tracker into the computer of that officer, so it would allow her to view her desktop remotely. And so any red light footage that she would look at, it would get sent to Dark Army. And Darlene, in the opening scene, she runs a red light, and so it took a picture of her, and that's how we get that picture that Janet sends to DDP.
That makes
Deep
sense.
Step at the end.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because DDP realizes when she runs the red light that this is the biggest clue that they're going to have as to who was around that night, like driving away.
So what I think is important about this, I do not think that Dark Army knows that Wellick is dead or missing. I don't think they know at all that he was with Elliot because the logs were not sent. Maybe they can put it together that this is the van that was monitoring Elliot, but that doesn't matter because they already have confirmation that Elliot was out there somewhere. So I think that's why, and we're going to go over this with Philip Price's scenes, I think that's why White Rose is going forward with the meeting, assuming that Wellick, they'll get him and bring him to the meeting. I think this is a really important detail because we're going to get a scene where White Rose finds out Wellick is missing and she's going to throw a fucking major shit fit. But I think this is really important that Dark Army has no idea where Wellick is and that he's missing.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to come as a shock to White Rose. There's been no...
As of right now, Dark Army has no inkling of suspicion about Wellick.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is true. Because, yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself, but we see that Philip Price sends a text to Elliot saying, hey, the meeting's still on with or without Wellick, implying that they don't know, I'm assuming.
One quick detail I didn't quite understand. When DDP's at her mom's house and she takes that beautiful dog out for a walk, she basically takes note of... I really did like that dog a lot.
That dog was
It looked like a
sweet.
very friendly dog.
Yeah.
That was very eager to go outside.
So cute.
She takes note of the vans and their license plates and what street corners they're on. I just thought, like, why did she do that?
Yeah, I think she's keeping track of who's watching her, the times, trying to figure out a pattern. One interesting thing, when we were watching this, Harney, I don't know if you thought this too, I made a comment to Swetha. I was like, do you think Santiago did the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling he did. I mean, she had a good point. They're FBI agents. Like, it's
Yeah.
in your training to be observant. And he probably tried his best to, like, maybe I can figure out a pattern. Maybe I can figure a way out of this.
I think the key difference, though, between her and Santiago is that I think Santiago accepted his fate, that he's never going to be able to get out of this. And I think DDP is constantly looking for a way out of it.
I think Santiago may have been like DDP initially, though.
Yeah, that's true.
I think so too. I think the big thing that's in DDP's favor is that she will have someone that's going to help her down the road, or a resource like Elliot or Darlene.
Yeah.
Santiago didn't have anything like that. He was
Correct.
on his own.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to move on to Philip Price's storyline. So first thing we see of Philip Price is he's sadly eating alone at a restaurant, very nice restaurant, on Christmas morning, it looks like. And they show the whole restaurant. There's not many people except for another family that looks very, very happy. And that's a stark contrast to Philip Price, who is utterly alone. And the waiter comes by and very rudely slaps a bill on his table. And Philip Price is like, all right, like, Merry Christmas to you too, type of thing. And opens up the check, and it says, doesn't have a bill on it. It just says, outside of E Corp, give $20 to the trombone player. As we see later, this is probably one of White Rose's little games that he likes to play. everything about him is like something fun that he likes to just toy around with, you know? And you can just see the irritation on Philip's face. He's like, ugh, just one more thing I have to get through, you know, like just one more of his stupid little games I have to play. But he doesn't know the extent of what it is just yet.
Yeah, I took it a little bit differently, but the way you said it actually could be 100% accurate. I took it more as in this is the level of detail and security measures the Deus group does.
That too. Mm-hmm.
That's how I kind of viewed it. It's like, oh, we're going to do all this crazy ass shit. But yeah, Philip Price definitely was like, oh my God, I can't wait for this shit to be done. This is ridiculous. I have to do this every time.
Right.
You could tell it's very tiresome for him to do all these things.
Right.
I also think that it's not the most realistic to be expecting the world's most powerful people to be like running around doing all this stuff. It doesn't really make sense to me. And it kind of defeats the purpose of security if you send someone else to go do it.
What do you mean?
Like, let's say Philip Price was still working at E-Corp. He wouldn't be, like, going around to the trombone player and the dry cleaner, right? He'd send his assistant or something like that. But that kind of defeats the purpose of security the more people know about it.
I bet there's rules in place that it has to be you that does it.
I just don't see world leaders and the most powerful people in the world doing stuff like this.
I disagree. I think they might do it just because they're like, oh, this is kind of fun. I'm part of a secret group and I get to do this spy shit, you know?
I think for someone like White Rose who values time so much, doesn't give a shit about all these other guys' people's times.
Oh, but I think that's why I liked Harney's point. This could all be White Rose's, her order of rules of how to do things. She'll never do it because she's the one making the rules.
Exactly. Yeah. She likes to toy with people's time. I think that's something that people always go back to. White Rose, I'm sure, knows coding and hacking very well, but what she does really well is she hacks time. And I think she likes to hack other people's time, kind of hijack their time, so to speak. I think it's just one little example of that.
Yeah, total tangent, but over the weekend, it was daylight savings, and BD Wong posted on Instagram, someone's hacking time. Don't forget to change your clocks.
So good, so good.
He totally loves being White Rose.
I love that he loves that. Okay. So then we see Philip Price, as instructed. He's outside of E-Corp, sees a trombone player, gives the $20, and gets yet another clue, which takes him to a dry cleaner's. And so Price gets the dry cleaning, and there's essentially another note in the pocket of the dry cleaning. And that's the end of the scavenger hunt that he has to go on. So basically, the note tells them the time, the meeting place of the Deus group meeting that will take place tomorrow, the day after Christmas. And Philip Price promptly texts Elliot, says, the meeting's on with or without Wellick. It's going to happen tomorrow. And tells him I have the meeting time and location.
I think it's just a comment when Elliot texts Philip Price, like, yeah, Wellick's not coming. He just looks like, so, like, what the fuck? Because he had no idea, like, Wellick was going to end up dead, like, the day before the meeting. You know what I mean?
So you guys, I think it's a correct assumption, but you guys are assuming that Philip Price takes that text at meaning that Wellick's dead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where else would he be for such an important meeting?
It's not
like
coming.
Right?
So what does that mean for Philip Price? When he's exasperated, what is he exasperated about?
I think on like a very superficial level, like it's like, what is happening? Like what kind of shit show is happening that Wellick's all of a sudden dead?
Do you think
True.
that White Rose told Philip Price that they would just use Wellick as the new CTO?
I don't think so.
I'm sure he did.
Oh, you think he did?
Because if he didn't know, then Philip Price would be like, what the fuck does Wellick have to do with anything?
True.
Right?
True.
So I took it as he's annoyed because now he's like, okay, now there's no CTO replacement.
Yeah.
White Rose won't let me step down CTO, and this meeting's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of this meeting was to get Wellick to replace me, and so I could be out. So I think that later message of the plan or the meeting going forward means to Philip Price, all right, everything is still going according to our plan, independent of Wellick.
I agree with that, but just to play devil's advocate, why can't Philip Price just walk? Like, I'm done. I don't care what happens to Deus Group, E Corp. I'm done. I'm out. I'm not CEO anymore.
I don't understand, like, going to Swetha's point, I don't understand why it matters to Price that he has a successor. It's not his problem. That's White Rose's problem. That's Minister Zhang's problem.
Yeah, this goes to, I think, a conversation we had, I think, a few podcasts ago when this whole topic came up, when Philip Price first went to Zhang saying, I'm going to resign.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't understand why Zhang was pissed and why it mattered. I mean, you're fucking Zhang, you're White Rose, do whatever you want. So I do think this might be a little bit of a weak part of the story, unless we don't have all the details. But right now, it feels a little bit flimsy and forced as to why this meeting needs to happen, why White Rose needs to go through all these hoops, even though she's White Rose, and why Philip Price should even give a fuck. I agree. This part's a little bit flimsy.
I agree. Like, going back to that scene, it always really bothered me that Mr. Robot was like, use the fact that you've been so loyal as the argument for why White Rose should do this. I'm like, White Rose doesn't care about Philip Price's loyalty.
Right.
I don't know why she agreed to this in the first place. So I agree. I think a little bit of weak storytelling, unfortunately.
The only thing is, I mean, what's the only thing that White Rose cares about? And that's getting her plant shipped to the Congo.
Mm-hmm.
And that plant is owned by E Corp. And so she needs someone at E Corp who has the power to make this happen. That's the only thing that I could see why she needs someone in a position of power to make this happen.
Yeah, I agree. So that's the only reason why I think White Rose was so pissed at the sudden or abrupt announcement of Price saying, like, I'm bouncing, I'm out. Because also, if you think about it, it's just like any other position. It takes a long time to groom someone that you can trust, someone that you know will do your bidding as you wish. And that's hard to find someone to replace in terms of Price for White Rose to carry out everything that he needs to do in the correct time, correct order for his plant to go well or to be shipped correctly to the Congo. And I think Zhang was, or not Zhang, I think White Rose could see a little bit of that happening in Wellick. He was like, okay, it's not ideal, but I can work with it. Wellick is a puppet enough for me already that he will do exactly what I say. But now this is going to throw a little bit of wrench in his plan for sure, in her plan. Okay, so now for the biggest storyline, the reason we're all here, Elliot and Darlene. So like I said, Darlene picks up Elliot and they basically have no time to waste. We see them promptly get back to Elliot's apartment, and we see a very interesting scene of Elliot breaking down. He's not in a good place. He's crying. He looks very torn and mentally just distraught. And there was a split second where he's kind of looking at the camera, and I was like, oh, is he going to talk to us? I got so excited. I was like, oh my God, he might. But then Darlene comes out and he immediately gets up and pretends like he's washing his hands, and that's the end of the scene. Or that's the end of like him, kind of being by himself. And Darlene comes out with a hideous wig.
I think the problem with the wig is that it made me realize how much her eyebrows are close to her skin tone. So it made it look like she didn't have any eyebrows.
Oh, you're right.
Right? Because I was like, why does she look so weird? And because there's so much contrast between, because she has a little bit of pale skin, right? And the hair is really dark. And then I just look like she shaved her eyebrows. It looked very odd. On the Elliot scene where he's crying, I want to get you guys' thoughts on why you guys think he's crying. I took it as he's crying over Wellick. Or not crying, but he had almost a breakdown. I think this guy loved him and cared for him and died for him, and it's finally hitting him like, shit, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe that entire night happened, and I can't believe I have all the most fortuitous things to happen. My sister comes and saves me. It was like so fucking lucky. He legit thought they were gonna die. He was very honest about that. He said, as soon as we stepped out and we saw the van was gone, I knew we were gonna die.
Which is so funny because in that opening scene, Darlene pulls up. Elliot just like knocks on the door, like all casual, like, and then just like sits in the passenger seat. Not like, oh my God, like, how'd you know I was here? Like, thank God you showed up, like, right at this moment. He just like kind of sits down and she's like, it's okay, we don't have to talk.
I think he was about to say something, right? If you look at his face and how he was reacting, I think it was more like shock.
Yeah.
Just like, holy shit, I can't believe she's here. I can't believe I'm safe. I think I'm
like incredulousness.
I can't believe I'm going to be okay. And I think he was about to like ask her a bunch of questions or explain. And she's like, it's okay. We don't need to talk. I think she, on her end, was just so grateful that he's okay. She found him and just wanted to like live in that moment and just focus on that. Mm-hmm. Everything else is irrelevant. We're here. We're okay. Let's move forward.
But I think going back to the scene where he's breaking down, first of all, amazing acting.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah. I just thought that was just such a layered performance where it's Elliot who has all these mental health issues, super isolated, crying, but also like really trying to hold it in and just like fighting with himself. Just amazing on so many levels. And I think it was everything just hitting him.
Yeah.
I think it was like all of it. Angela dying, Wellick dying, everything, all the craziness. Yep. And he was finally like processing all of that stuff for a second. And then as soon as Darlene walks out, he like shuts it down again.
I think it was exactly what Sweet is saying. I think it's a compounded factor of all the people he's lost over this year or however long it's been ever since Shayla. It's like another person dead because of me, you know? That's a lot to take on for one person. So anyways, they get straight to work. They are making moves to hack into virtual reality. And like Sayed had mentioned earlier, they roll up to virtual reality around 10:58, right before 11 a.m. And they create a badge for Darlene under the pseudonym Dolores Hayes for her to get inside. I'm going to kind of breeze over the details of everything, unless you guys have more to say, then stop me. But essentially what happens...
Well, just what you brought up right now, do you think that there was some reasoning behind why they chose that specific time?
Yeah, the reasoning was that was when the other guard was going to go on his lunch break, right. I guess. And it was just going to be one guard.
Oh, exactly. Got it.
That was the biggest reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the day is because security is lightest. One thing that bothered me, and we tried to figure this out in the rewatch, how did they know there was going to be 3D printers within the building? That kind of bothered me. We thought they might maybe figure that out from the website, but there wasn't anything. The website only showed that they had a bunch of servers. The other thing, the 3D printers were in their break room, or what looked like a break room. It just seemed kind of odd. But, you know, I guess we have to assume that Darlene did research and said there are 3D printers there in some floor. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it didn't bother me that much. I think it probably was on their website. A 3D printer is a pretty cool thing to have. It's something that you would advertise if you were proud of your company. And
not those 3D printers.
I don't know.
Those are pretty standard consumer level printers.
I don't know. The server room didn't seem like that big of a deal. And that was on their website, like state-of-the-art servers.
That was a pretty big server farm, though.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal that the company had a 3D printer. And I actually don't...
It wasn't one 3D printer. It was like at least 10.
I don't think it was in the break room, though. The break room is where Elliot sets up the hack for the upgrade.
That was the security and IT break room. This was more like a staff break room because there was bowls of cereal and milk and a sink where Darlene was getting the steam. And there was a coffee machine and everything. It was definitely a break room.
Or a workroom with a mini kitchen.
Moving on. So Dolores gets into virtual reality. She essentially swipes in. Her badge doesn't work. That's a whole ruse, which I felt was a very flimsy ruse, to be honest, where she just drops all her shit and then Elliot just runs across and just slides through the elevator. I don't know. I thought that was super, super risky, that they just had like that, I don't know, less than a minute for him to like get through and get by.
I think this whole thing was risky, as we see later on. It was a risky plan from the get-go, but they didn't have any options. They had like a couple of hours to figure it out.
They had like half the information. The other half was just like kind of winging it, to be honest, because they didn't have that much time. It wasn't perfect, and I think that was the key to this, to it being realistic. So
I disagree a little bit, and I think Swetha brought this up. I actually think they did know a lot of information. And when I say they, it's actually just one person, that's Darlene. I think Darlene actually planned quite a bit of what to do.
Right.
And Ellie just had to go with it. Because she was asking, we're going to get to this later on, why was Darlene the one doing the hacking in the server room and not Elliot? Because Elliot theoretically would be faster and better. I think it's because Elliot just was not prepared. But Darlene had time and was ready to go. And so I think that's why she was the one doing most of the heavy lifting.
Right, but that stuff for sure, I think they had a lot of time on, or at least Darlene had a lot of time on. But little things like, they had no clue that guy was going to ever pick up her phone and hand it back to her.
Oh, that was part of the plan, though.
That was part of the plan, but what if he never did? What if he never saw it? Like, a lot of their plans, like their major parts of their plans, really hinged on moments that could have gone either way.
They were very conditional, yeah.
Yeah, and so I feel like that was very risky, and it was kind of like, this is not the best plan, but
I think
is what we have.
Kind of makes sense, though, for a Darlene plan and not an Elliot plan, right?
Yeah,
well,
totally.
Yes and no. I think Sam Esmail has said this in interviews. One of the biggest reasons why he wanted to do a show based on hacking is because a lot of any TV shows or episodes or movies that focus on hacking, they've only focused on one aspect, and that was, sitting at a computer doing some code. But he said a big part of hacking is social engineering, where you're hacking people and their interactions. And he said that's a big thing he wanted to show in Mr. Robot. And I think that was a perfect example of social engineering, where they needed his fingerprint. Yes, it may not have worked, but they were playing the odds, like, let's create a scenario where this might happen. Social engineering.
Yeah, of course.
You're hacking that situation. But it wasn't just a random thing that happened.
No one's saying it's random. No one's saying it's random, but there's a 50% chance he doesn't see the phone for another 10 minutes. What is she going to do? She can't just stand there. He had to notice it right away.
I think she placed it in a position that was obvious for him to see.
That's fine, but you can see like Darlene's like clearly walking very slowly.
She's walking very slowly, yeah.
Towards the door, and you can tell she's tense. She's like, shit, he hasn't looked at it yet. He hasn't seen it yet. And then like that huge sigh of relief when he does. So I think there's a little bit of element of both where like, yeah, it is social engineering, but there's a huge element of it could totally go the other way. And they just have to take that risk,
Yeah, I still think it was a controlled situation. It wasn't...
Really?
I really think it was a controlled situation where there's a chance it didn't work, but there was a high chance it did.
See, I disagree.
Exactly.
Imagine an empty desk and there's a phone there that's not yours. But he's going to pick it up.
It's literally to like the back of him and the way that he's facing, if he's facing the door to greet people.
He just finishes helping her do her stuff.
Yeah.
She's walking away. He lets her in. He's still looking at her. All he has to do is look down and the phone's there.
Yeah. I still think it's a risk. And I think one of the things they don't fully calculate for is how much of an awesome security guard Dolph Lawler ends up being.
I can't believe you guys are focusing on that and not the stupidest part of the plan where she drops her stuff and Ellie just runs in. That part didn't make any sense to me. I was like, he's running in. How does nobody hear that?
Exactly. That was what I was saying. I'm just saying in general, there was like parts of the plan that just like clearly was like, fuck, we just got to go with this, Like they had no escape route. Like that was, I mean, of course they weren't expecting the cops to be called, but they didn't also account for that either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess we can agree on this. Definitely, given the time constraints, was not their best plan.
But that was, I liked that because it was realistic to the story.
Definitely.
So essentially, there's just these wild series of events. They're working at lightning speed. Elliot gets into the IT break room, as Sitha said, and he manages to hack into it just in time to get Dolores or Darlene on as an employee so that her badge will work, and simultaneously shuts down all of the security camera footage, but just for 40 minutes. So that is the kind of timeline we're working with here for the course of the episode. Then essentially what they do is, as we talked about, they go up to the break room, not break room, we don't know. They get the fingerprint. Darlene works on that to essentially 3D print the thumbprint of
Dolph Lawler, yeah.
Dolph Lawler, the security guard. And they make a thumb imprint, which they use to gain access to the server rooms with higher security clearance on the 9th floor, I believe. And as Sid and Swetha already alluded to, Darlene is the one initiating and completing the hack. She's going for it. Of course, that's probably because she had the more time and Elliot did not have the time to prepare for this. So she's in charge. She's working her way through this. I don't really remember the series of events that leads Dolph back over to the elevators and kind of making his way and seeing that the, I don't know what you call it, in the elevator, the security, the emergency is open.
I can go over that. So basically, when Elliot, what he does, he initiates like a system update, which forces all of the cameras to go out. And that's when Dolph notices. He's watching, the greatest Christmas movie ever, Die Hard, and the security cameras go out. And like Swetha said, Dolph is a legit security guard. This guy is as Swetha said, he's no dummy. He's like a smart guy who's very on his game. And his first thought, security cameras are out, let me go to the IT break room. He goes down there, sees an update's happening, tries to cancel the update, it doesn't work, and he's like, fuck it. It's only going to go on for another, what I think it was like 30 minutes at that point. I'll just go back up. When he gets in the elevator, he notices the emergency panel was open. And this part I thought was cool and shows, why Dolph isn't a dummy. He gets this thought, what? The one room or one floor I need to really watch out for as my job as a security guard is the 9th floor, which requires badge access. Let me go check out the most important and secure area of our building and check, has anyone accessed that area? And when he checks, he sees that he has access to that area. So someone has stolen his ID card or his thumbprint. And that's when he tells his buddy to call the cops.
Correct. And I don't know about you guys, but as soon as he looked on his phone to see that he himself had gained access to that room when he clearly had not, I really started to panic. I was like, oh shit. Because they had no idea at that point, like, Dolph is being very good security guard and just quietly meandering around, not calling attention to himself. And I think the whole not calling, with having no dialogue in that moment was very smart. Because if I were him, I don't want to call attention by like physically calling someone and like talking on the phone in case anyone's nearby. I would text that shit and just keep it on the DL, which he does. He's very good about keeping on the DL as much as possible. So in that same breath, when Dolph finds out, he calls the police. He texts his other security guard, his buddy, downstairs, and it has him call the police. So police are on their way. Elliot and Darlene are not currently aware of that. Dolph simultaneously gains access to the server room and starts making his way down each row. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, Sitha, because this scene really reminded me of the scene from Game of Thrones where Arya's in the book or the library or something and is trying to avoid all these essentially undead.
I liked it, but I do think you had to suspend your belief a little bit. Keyboards are loud.
Exactly.
I'm a little bit surprised that he didn't hear it. At the same time, server farms are not quiet. Mm-hmm. They all have fans. They have a low hum. And if you have a lot of them, it could be a generally loud hum. And so that, in theory, could mask the typing. So, all right, I can maybe go that far. What I appreciated about the scene was Dolph had the balls to enter there. He knew someone accessed it.
Right.
Might still be there. And he was like, fuck it. I'm still going to go in and check it out. I don't think he had a weapon on him. But he still was like, whatever. I'm going to go check this out because it's my job. So I thought that was really ballsy of him to do. Very competent of him to do. What I liked about the scene, though, was Darlene clearly was not done when the timer went off.
Yeah.
And I think the cameras went back on. And then, Ellie shows her the time, saying, you don't have a lot of time left. And she gives him this look where it was so Darlene.
Yeah.
You could hear her saying, dude, I'm not fucking done. But she didn't have to say
She's
anything.
like, dude, what do you want me to do? I'm not finished.
And what I further even loved about this is that the old Elliot, even maybe just like a few episodes ago, would have shoved her out of the way and taken over. It's like, let me fucking do it. But no, this version of Elliot's like, all right, let her finish. Let me figure out a way to distract the guy or create some kind of distraction to help her finish the job. I love that. Elliot has not only like her trust, as a sister, but trust in her skills as a fellow hacker.
Yeah.
And I think that was a very small detail that I really, really appreciated.
Definitely.
Elliot wouldn't have even known about virtual reality if it wasn't for Darlene.
100%.
Very true.
So she was like the only reason they were there in the first place.
And just to be clear, everyone understands why they were even at virtual reality. Gaining access to virtual reality's systems allow them to gain access to the Cyprus National Bank's records and accounts and everything. That was why they had to do this.
Right. And so, like I said, they're continuing the scene. Dolph is walking the server halls, and he's getting dangerously close to Elliot and Darlene. The time is up.
Yeah, like, why did he take so long? He's just, like, slowly
I'd be nervous.
walking through.
Like Scylla said, like, that's pretty fucking scary to walk in there when you know, like, someone has gained access with your badge. They're probably in there. He doesn't know if they have a weapon or who they are, if they're dangerous, and he's just going in there. Like, I think I would be nervous and, like, kind of gingerly making my way through and being very cautious.
Being methodical, right? Going from row to row, trying to search. And, as he was about to get to their row, and then, the lights went out because Elliot was smart enough to see in the ceiling there was some kind of company that worked for virtual reality that he could shut down everything.
Yeah, very quick thinking on Elliot's part. And that buys him a little bit of time, but trusty doll has got a flashlight because he's prepared, and so he keeps walking the halls, and I don't necessarily know what stops him from going down there. Oh, he doesn't stop, but there's a moment where he's flashing, just like looking around and flashing it, and you can see the light shining on Darlene and Elliot's faces, and that was like a pretty crazy moment. And he decides to walk down a different way, but then he does eventually come towards their row. And they're gone. It was just enough time, of course, for Darlene to finish off the hack, get the information that they need, and they could leave. But Doll does see is they're not able to have the time to close everything up and put it away. So he does see the computer out from that server. So he clearly knows like someone was there. But the next scene we see is Darlene and Elliot running for their lives down this crazy scene of the stairwell, just from the top angle or bird's eye view, which it gave me a little bit of vertigo just like looking at it, them running down.
It was a beautiful scene.
Great scene.
Beautiful scene. And seamless how the camera was like
following
just
them.
one continuous shot going with them.
Totally.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, actually, you said it perfectly, Harney. That felt exactly like one of the shots from the movie Vertigo that Hitchcock did. And there was actually a lot of shots in this episode that were very Hitchcock-like. So that was really cool. And, obviously Sam Esmail's a huge fan of Hitchcock and emulates a lot of his angles and zoom-ins and zoom-outs. And this one, they basically, I think they just took a gimbal and just dropped it as far as they could to make it feel like that you're falling with them.
That's really cool.
And it was just a great, great shot.
Yeah, love that scene. And so they do finally make it to the ground floor.
Our neighbors are jumping around.
Oh my god. And so they finally
dropping bowling balls as usual.
What's that, like that spring thing?
Pogo stick?
Pogo stick?
Yeah, I feel like they walk around on a pogo stick.
Anyways, so they get to the ground floor and they look through the little window and the cops are already there. They can't really go out that way for sure. And the two security guards are there as well, speaking to the cops. And they're like, shit, we don't know what to do. They kind of take a breather. And Doll, our trusty security guard, is being smart again.
Dolph.
Dolph. Dolph comes back, and this is kind of a jumpy moment. His face just appears in that glass.
That was crazy.
I love it because he actually did, I think, kind of sneak around so that he wasn't seen, so that he could have that surprise moment.
Actually, yeah, probably.
That's totally something Swetha would do as a security guard.
Yeah, and so he's there, and he immediately, Elliot's like, fuck, and he grabs the door, and they're like kind of having like this tug of war, and
yeah,
Elliot's like looking at Darlene, Darlene's looking at Elliot's like, shit, I don't know, what do we do? We're totally like we're caught, and Elliot just in spur of the moment was like, fuck it, and he just pushes the door back on Dolph and then runs for it. He just runs past the cops, runs past everybody, and immediately these two cops start chasing Elliot, and this whole entire freaking long ass chase scene ensues, which was great.
I think it's spur of the moment, but I also think Elliot looks at Darlene and he's like, I have to protect her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to sacrifice myself and I'm just going to go for it. But yeah, this was so nuts. I was not anticipating this at all. Like when they were doing the tug of war with the door, I was like, it's never been this close for Elliot. Like he's never been this much in trouble, you know? Like I was like, oh my God, how is this happening? And then when he was running and running and running, it was like, oh my goodness, what is going on? I can't believe he's in this much trouble. He's literally like running for his life and his freedom. So crazy.
One important detail I noticed on a rewatch, and I kind of suspect this in the first time, Elliot makes this decision to sacrifice himself and protect Darlene because I believe based off the window and the angle, Dolph does not see Darlene is there. And so as far as Dolph is concerned, Elliot's alone.
That was my question. I was like, didn't he see her? I don't understand.
No, she's off to, I think, the left of Elliot, or to the right. And I think he realizes when he's looking at her, I can get past this guy because this guy doesn't see her. And as he knocks him down, it should give her enough time to, go back upstairs, and she finds the gym jacket and everything.
Got you. Yeah. And so, I was going to say something. Oh yeah, so what Swetha was saying, you said it perfectly. It's never been this close for Elliot, and I'm literally thinking in my head, it's like, shit, he has nowhere to go. What is he gonna do? Like, this is it. Like, there's no way out of this. Like, I was like, maybe there's another ground floor exit, but maybe there's an alarm will sound. Like, I don't know what they're gonna do, man. And it was a great moment for Elliot where he, like said, like he's looking at Darlene's like, I have to save her. He's like, so he knows it's like, this is the only diversion I can do to like get her to think of something and get away. And I think they did a good job of Elliot's not the most athletic human being, as we know. So this was a huge feat for him to take on. And he did a good job of showing like his exhaustion of just like seriously like sprinting for his life. And there's just no moment of rest, even when he finally gets on a bus and is like, all right, like I'm out of there. You see the cop car, he's like, fuck, just pushes everyone out of the way and like forces the bus doors open. He's just literally ready to just jump off buildings and bridges, and it's like, fuck it, I just have to get away. It was really, really well done. And then like Sid already mentioned before, Darlene in a panic is now left her own devices and smartly goes back up to the break room area, or so we think, and finds a pair of workout clothes, like tracksuit basically, puts it on, and she eyes a water bottle, super smart, takes off her wig, just walks right out the door like a badass. So good. And she gets in her car, that handy GPS that she has on Elliot, she promptly picks him up and they're off again. Really, really good.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys caught this, but the bus that Elliot jumps onto really quickly, it has an E-Corp ad on the side, and Wellick's face. So in a way, Wellick kind of saved him again. So I thought that was a nice detail. I thought Elliot going through the ice rink was the most hilarious thing ever.
He was like surprisingly good at like skating through the rink without ice skates.
Just him slowly running through there. I was dying.
That was hilarious. I was like, this is so weird. He's like trying to mimic like skating, but he's not skating.
And props, and I wrote in my notes, like, Darlene, Clutch City, dude. Like, she was keeping track on her phone and GPS and was at the right position, parallel to wherever he was. And, Elliot, like, and I mentioned this before, Elliot gets hit by the car, gets knocked out for a few seconds.
Just brutal, oh my God.
I wouldn't be surprised if, Mr. Robot, took over for a second or helped him get back up. Yeah. But, yeah, Elliot, he didn't give up, man. Like, he really didn't give up.
I know.
I have no fucking idea. And I think Mark said this when I was chatting with him. How the fuck did that fat cop keep up with him? There's like no way. There was like a pretty overweight cop that was like really busting his ass. So I don't know about that, but
Elliot runs so weird too. I found out this episode.
Yeah.
When he was like running down the halls in virtual reality, I was like, why does he run like that?
Well, he's wearing skinny jeans. Not like there's a lot of free movement.
Like running like this.
And he's wearing boots.
Yeah.
I will say, though, there are a lot of fat but fit people.
Medical corner.
Your weekly reminder, Swith is a doctor.
Yeah,
in case you forgot.
Exactly. She wears white coat. Yeah, so that was the end of the episode. Thoughts.
Well, I think you mentioned that you thought the scene was long. I think you mentioned that at the beginning of the podcast. I actually was on the edge of my seat the whole time. I thought it was amazing how long they held the tension and excitement.
I agree.
I was like, oh my God, they're right there. And yeah, the ice rink scene was so creative. And then when he's at that railing, at least the way that they film it, you don't know what's below there. You're like, is he going to jump? My God, he can't jump.
Right.
And then he like tumbles down the hill and like Darlene's right there. And so I loved it. I thought this chase scene, this running scene at the end was really, really cool.
No, I guess what I should say is I didn't like it because it was so anxiety ridden, and I felt the length of it because I was like, fuck, when is he just gonna get back to safety? Like this is agonizing. That's what I felt. I wasn't on the edge of my seat like, this is so exciting. I was like, LA needs to be safe.
Yeah, I kind of took it a little bit differently than you guys. I thought
For you,
it was I thought it was an interesting combination of tension and anxiety, but also like a comical scenario.
Yeah,
because it's just, he looked like you were saying ridiculous running. He was breathing really hard. Aww. And the mic was on. He's like.
Oh, come on.
Not in a bad way, but then there were so many times where he would like fall down, right? There were so many times where he'd fall down and get up, and he's like limping around. There was even one time where he fell down.
Oh, that's not funny.
And he was like grabbing his head.
Elliot.
He was like grabbing his head, and he was just like, holy shit, he's going through so much right now to get away. Even when he like jumped over the side of the thing, I kept waiting to hear like a splash of water because I thought there was going to be water on the other side of that bridge or that overpass.
Yeah, he looked so pathetic just like rolling down.
That's what I'm saying. It was like comical. And like the camera focused on him slowly rolling down. It's just like, I don't know. It was like, a combination, maybe like 10% comedy.
Yeah.
I don't know, 40% anxiety and another like 50% tension.
I feel bad for his stunt man. That was a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of shit for the character to go through. My goodness. Like, he got hit by a car and he had to just, like, get up and, like, keep running. My gosh. It was a lot.
And there was, like, another scene when he was, like, running by the movie theater. He just ran through, like, two women having a conversation and waiting by the movie theater. And they're like, it was just hella funny. Like, he just, I don't know. Something about it was, like, cracking me up. But I loved the final scene.
Jesus.
I just want to say, I loved the final scene.
It's the Sid show.
Seriously. I've been trying to get a word in for the last 5 freaking minutes.
When I love the final scene.
Shut up.
All right, fine, go. Go.
Now I forgot. Oh, yeah. So the medical coroner. What kind of injuries would he have sustained from that car crash, realistically?
He could have had, internal bleeding. It was essentially like a blunt trauma, right? Mm-hmm. So depending on where exactly the car hit him, he could have broken ribs.
Okay.
He could have had internal bleeding. You know, you definitely want to go to the hospital in that setting and get CT scans to check out those things. But we know Elliot's not going to do that.
So he definitely could have broken some bones then.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he also maybe got a little bit of a, at least concussion maybe,
Yeah.
or hit his head, because like I was mentioning, at one point he was like grabbing his head,
Yeah.
but he didn't have time to really focus on that because the cops were chasing him. But yeah, the final scene I really liked when Darlene picked him up and she had her hand on the stick shift and
Aw.
he puts his hand on hers, and I don't know, and I wrote in my notes, brother and sister reunited,
Yeah.
finally.
So good.
And
so
it was just
good.
like a great way to like end things, just them back together on, I don't know, I'm assuming a really good place moving forward.
Well, they really went through some shit together, and I think Darlene saw, wow, like Elliot's willing to sacrifice himself for me. And Elliot saw, wow, Darlene was there for me twice in two major situations.
Totally.
And we are totally down for each other,
Right.
no matter what. And I think it's a big, big, big step for both of them.
Huge step.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Swetha, when are you going to let Harney talk? Keep talking
I had a
over her.
thought and I lost
Just
it.
like one last thought.
But like, wow, what a duo. Such a great duo. They're really
Elliot and
just-
Darlene?
yeah, like when they truly work together, and I don't feel like they ever really truly worked together until this episode, because I feel like before that Elliot was either split in half literally by his personalities, or Elliot did not fully trust Darlene and her capabilities. But look at what they were able to do together when they fully worked as two separate individuals that trusted one another and their abilities. It was pretty awesome.
It's kind of interesting if you think about it like that. Like, they're both brilliant, but they both have these things that hold them back. Elliot, obviously, this split personality and always like arguing with himself and having all these doubts. And then Darlene's super, super smart and super, super capable. But there are things that she doesn't do so well. Like, she is reckless and she kind of likes to incite rebellion. And, you know, she gets way over her head in a way that Elliot we've seen do a lot this season, but that's not who Elliot is. When he really
Yeah.
has the time to sit down and think about something or plan a hack, it's all about like calculated risks for him, where I don't think
Right.
Darlene's so good at that. And
She's
so
not as methodical.
correct, exactly. But both of them are brilliant, like really, really amazing siblings. And
Yeah.
I would say that this caper didn't go exactly as they planned, because Elliot had to run halfway through New York to get away, and he's in pretty bad physical condition at the end of it. But yes, they were able to pull it off, and I don't know, maybe we'll see some other really cool stuff from them working together in the next few episodes.
So that'll be a good transition. What are our thoughts for next week or even beyond that?
Well, one cool theory that I came across from just reflecting on some of the stuff we talked about in previous episodes, we talked about the importance of the time 11:16.
Uh-huh.
And one of the cool theories that's out there is, what if it's not a time at all? What if it's more 1/1/16, January 1st, 2016? That's kind of cool. Where maybe White Rose's project is a success and it's like the dawn of a new era, January 1st, 2016. Or I don't know, what if it's not a success, but that's still like a brand new chapter in Darlene, Elliot, and DDP's life by White Rose being defeated, and finally like all the terror of the Dark Army is behind them, and it's like a new beginning in a way, the start of the new year. So kind of a really cool theory I came across.
I was looking at the schedule, and it looks like the last episode will air a few days before New Year's. I think it's like on the 30th or 29th. So I think that might fall in line with what you're saying, Swetha. I think maybe he did that intentionally. He wanted to end this show as we transition to 2020 or in the show from 2015 to 2016. So there might be something there.
I personally did not watch the trailer, so
we don't have to talk about it. I don't think they revealed too much.
No,
but
I'd like to talk about it. If you wanted to give me the rundown for the crew, for the audience.
I think in the preview, if I can remember correctly, so to correct me if I'm wrong, basically Vera is in Krista's home and kind of telling her, you're going to give me what I want. Mr. Robot is talking to Elliot in a coffee shop saying he's about to embark on something really dangerous. And then DDP...
Mr. Robot's telling Elliot?
Mr. Robot said that's to Elliot. Huh. And then DDP shows up at Angela's apartment where Darlene is staying, draws a gun on her, and says, "Where's your brother?" And that's how the preview ends. I think those are the three big moments in the preview. So obviously Vera and Krista. I have a feeling the Vera Krista stuff might take a majority of the next episode, along with DDP and Darlene. I don't think we're gonna get the meeting next week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think next week might be the afternoon of Christmas Day. I think they're going to drag it out, the next few episodes, the whole Christmas Day, and then we're going to get the night episode, maybe broken up into 2 episodes for the meeting or something.
Got you. That makes sense. I can see that.
I just hope that the Vera stuff isn't more of a distraction. That's why I really like Swetha's theory that it forces Ellie to choose between what's more important.
I worry, do you think that Krista's going to end up dead?
I think it's a possibility. I think that's definitely a possibility. I also hope more on the positive side, it makes them closer, and maybe she kind of understands the scale and the circumstances he's been put under.
Mm-hmm, totally.
But more than likely, she's going to resent him more for putting her through this.
I was just about to say, imagine if you were in Krista's shoes and the only reason you're being like held hostage and being threatened is because of Elliot. I don't think you're going to see him in a more positive light. You're going to resent him even more.
Elliot will save her in some capacity, I think. I don't know if her boyfriend's going to make it out, though, because he's going to show up, right? Because they blew off dinner with the family to show up. He's going to show up later on.
Which totally sucks, because it was finally, like, in this episode, we see Krista happy.
Yeah.
And then this shit has to go down. She had like 1 day of happiness. Just horrible.
Well, I think she's had a few months, right? Where Elliot stayed out of her way.
I guess, yeah.
But yeah, not long enough.
But short-lived. Yeah, totally.
What do you think is going to happen next, Harini?
I think exactly what you guys had been saying. I need to take a look at the preview, but I'm more looking forward to the day of. And I'd be really interested to see if Swetha's plan pans out with the whole Vera and Elliot having to choose between those 2 scenarios and how that kind of works out. It might be a situation where he allows Mr. Robot to take over and Darlene to take over as well on his behalf. I don't really know how that works, but I am curious to see what you had said about Mr. Robot telling Elliot that he's about to embark on something dangerous. Do you think that has something to do with the third man, so to speak?
I think it might be something to do with just their actual plan.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe even to what Swetha is saying, maybe he comes up with some kind of plan to save Krista and do the plan, but it's hella risky. And Mr. Robot's like, dude, fuck Krista, focus on the plan. Because Mr. Robot's all about what's the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And all these small details don't matter. And knowing Mr. Robot, he'd probably say, if given that choice, sorry, Krista, you're screwed. But knowing Elliot, he wants to figure out a way to do both.
Of course. All right. I think that's it, unless anyone has any other last thoughts.
I guess my one last thought is, this is what we expected Vera to do, is capture Krista and force Elliot's hand. But it's interesting because that's what he told his like lieutenant. He says, you know, I don't want Elliot to be my prisoner. I want him to be a willing participant.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really fit what he's doing right now in terms of, and I don't know when Vera sees Elliot talking to Krista, he says, I need to know what she knows. So maybe he's just like grilling her for information and then he'll let her go.
I think that's more likely.
Yeah.
It deviates from your theory,
Correct.
but I do think that's the most likely thing. Because it's kind of interesting. It's like almost like the Wellick scenario. He wants Elliot to like him, not force him to like him. And Vera wants Elliot to work with him, not be forced to work with him.
Yeah.
And he wants information from Krista about his psychology and who he is in order to get him to work with him. But the only relevant information that Krista could give him is that he has two personalities, as far as she knows. I'm not sure how that's helpful to Vera. But Vera is very creative, so I'm sure he'll come up with something.
I personally don't see Krista giving him anything valuable in terms of information.
Oh, I think she's going to give it up quick. She's going to give it up quick. She has no reason to protect Elliot. She doesn't like Elliot. She doesn't care for him. She wants nothing to do with him.
Doctor-patient confidentiality.
She'll feel guilty about it, and she'll feel bad, but if it comes between saving herself and her boyfriend, it's a no-brainer for her.
It's obvious, like, there's going to be a scenario where her boyfriend texts or tries to call her in the midst of this interrogation, and Vera uses that against her.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening, guys. A little bit of feedback.
Oh,
from
do we now?
Our listeners. Bam Bam said Sam Esmail apparently is a known big fan of Zoolander. And so Bam Bam's comment was the security guard a male model? Because he apparently could not turn left. He kept avoiding wherever Elliot was. He wasn't an ambi-turner, as Bam Bam says. And the other thing was, I don't know, I think Switha, you played a little bit. I'm not sure about Harini. GTA Grand Theft Auto.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded him when Elliot was running away. Every time you're trying to run away from the cops, it's very much like that scenario where you get 4-star police alert where all the cops are after you and you're just running aimlessly throughout the city trying to get away from them, get away from the cops. And so that reminded him of Grand Theft Auto. Definitely reminded me of that too. It's more like on the funny side, but yeah. But that's it as far as the feedback. If you guys have any more feedback, please email us at tvsiblingspodcast@gmail.com or just message us.
We'd love to hear your crockpot theories.
Yeah, more crockpot theories, please. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening. This is Sid.
This is Swetha.
And this is Harini.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.